Thank you. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Good morning. I can't quite believe that it's the 16th of December. It's been a very strange year, but it's also gone fast in some ways. So I hope your holiday season is going okay, and we're glad that you could join us this morning, and I hope that we'll have a few more people joining as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's our agenda today, and we'll do some introductions as we always do, and then we have a few announcements that we'll go over, and we'll have our usual brainstorming section, which is of course your time. So feel free to be thinking about anything you'd like to bring up, something you might need help with, or something that you just want to share. We love that. And then we're kind of excited to have a special presenter today who is going to be joining us from the Resiliency Center at the university. And we're going to do a little different meeting, and it's about kind of having some self-compassion. It's been a tough year, and we all need to sort of give ourselves a break. So we're going to try and do that this morning. And then we'll wrap it up. So let's go ahead and start with our introductions. Again, welcome, and we're so glad you could join us this morning. I'm Mindy Tueller, and I manage the Medical Home Portal and the Utah Children's Care Coordination Network. I'm just going to click on the list of people I see and then just read their names as I see them. So apologies to those of you who come a little late. We might skip over you, but we'll do our best. So the next name I see is Gabby.
Good morning. Yeah, my name is Gabby Baragoshi, and I am a quality improvement at UPIC, and also assisting Mindy with the UCCCN group.
Thank you, Gabby. And next I see Athena. Athena, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Athena Parker, and I am also with the Medical Home Portal and help maintain the Utah Service Directory with some of our state partners.
Great. And next I see Chuck.
Good morning, I'm Chuck Norland, the General Pediatrician, Director of the Medical Home Portal, and I want to take this opportunity to wish you all a happy, if distant from your loved ones, holiday season.
Thanks, Chuck. Right, next I see Katie.
Hi, I am Katie. I am the care coordinator at the University Pediatric Clinic, and I hope you all have a wonderful holiday.
Thanks, Katie. All right, next I see Cassie.
Hi, this is Cassie Crane. I am a care coordinator at Wasatch Pediatrics South Point.
Welcome. And I see Sherilyn Hess next.
I'm Sherilyn. I'm a nurse care manager at Intermountain Pediatrics in American Fork.
Wonderful. All right, and I see Dora.
Good morning. My name is Dora. I'm the Professional Relations Coordinator for Shriners Hospitals for Children in Salt Lake.
Excellent. And I think Erin is up next.
Hi, I'm Erin Shoemaker, and I am the Administrative Assistant for both the Medical Home Portal and UCCCN.
And I see Natalie Allen.
Hi, I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I work for Integrated Services Program, Utah Department of Health.
Great to have you, Natalie. And I see that Walt is up next.
Yes, good morning. I work with Integrated Services with Natalie, which is part of the State Health Department, and I'm a coordinator, care coordinator with the program in Salt Lake.
Terrific to have you, Walt. And next up, I see Ileana.
Hi, I'm Ileana from Southwest Children's Clinic, and I'm the clinic manager here, and I have a new care coordinator with me because I'm super excited to have, and it's Janet Espinoza, and she's sitting with me in my office today from Southwest Children's Clinic.
Wonderful. Welcome. Welcome. We're so glad you guys are both here. All right, next I see someone who was logging on as CSHCN. I think it's someone from Eric's team, the ISP team. And it's Gwen. Okay, I see Gwen typing in the chat. And she's with Grand, Carbon, and Emery counties with the ISP team, Department of Health. Great, glad to have you, Gwen. All right, next I see Jade.
Hi, this is Jade. I'm the care manager with University of Utah Health Plans and Healthy You. And I'm only here till 9, sorry. Thank you.
No problem, we're so glad you could join us for the first little bit. Thanks, Jade. All right, Eric Christensen.
Sorry, always searching for that elusive turn on the mic button there. I'm Eric Christensen. I am the program manager with the Integrated Services Program at the Utah Department of Health.
Glad to have you, Eric. And next I see Heidi. I think this is Heidi Bates.
Yep, I'm Heidi Bates. I'm one of the other UPIC coaches. I work with Gabby, and I also want to remind everybody that tomorrow is that big webinar, asthma webinar. So if you would like to join and haven't gotten an invitation, please let me know and I'll send one out to you.
Great, good pitch. Thanks, Heidi. All right, and I see Cynthia Palacios Gutierrez.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Palacios Gutierrez, and I am the clinical psychologist for the Integrated Services team at the Utah Department of Health.
Wonderful. Glad you're with us. And next I see Kelsey.
I am Kelsey, care coordinator at San Juan and Blanding, and I work for Integrated Services Program.
Glad you're here with us, Kelsey. Okay, next I see Gina Money.
Hi, Gina Money, a family advocate with Medical Home and UCCCN.
Glad you're here. And next I see Katrina Jensen.
Hi, good morning. Katrina Jensen from Intermountain Healthcare Pediatrics Community Care Base. Thank you.
Glad you're with us, Katrina. And next up I see Evelyn. Looks like you've unmuted, Evelyn, but I'm not hearing you. It looks like we might have a little bit of audio difficulties, so that's all right. Welcome, Evelyn. Sorry about that. And let's see, next I see Janelle Hendrickson.
Good morning. I'm a nurse care manager for Intermountain, mostly with holiday pediatrics and a little bit with AltaView. Did you get that?
Yes, we got it. Yeah. And Evelyn, she wrote in the chat box, I'm Evelyn. I'm the care coordinator from Utah Valley Pediatrics at the Cherry Tree office.
Everyone, we're glad you're here. Maybe there's one more in the chat. Evelyn, great. Evelyn's the care coordinator from Utah Valley Pediatrics at Cherry Tree. Great, glad you're with us, Evelyn. Okay, well, as let's do some housekeeping and then we'll do announcements. So we encourage you all to join us via the computer if you're able to. That experience is a little bit better now that we're pretty much all remote. And we will be sure to respect your time and end at 10, if not a little early today. And so I did want to just mention a couple of things. And before Jade goes, I'll just say thank you, Jade, for your information about the monoclonal antibodies too. I hope everybody got that email that we sent out. That was a heads up from Jade, and we really appreciate those kinds of things. The listserv, the one way that we reach out to you guys has been pretty busy lately. We've sent out a lot of information lately. I hope that hasn't been too much, but that was great. And that information also is posted on the Medical Home portal on our COVID-19 pages. Also wanted to just do a shout out to everyone who responded to Cassie Crane's request for help. And I just be curious, Cassie, if that was helpful for you.
It was so helpful. Thank you guys for responding. I don't have it in front of me now, but I ended up getting in touch with a home health company, and they were really on top of it and were able to get them set up. And I think we have got them going already. So thank you so much for your help.
Oh, awesome. Wonderful. Okay. Well, that, yeah, to me, that's
Mindy,
just what.
Mindy,
Yeah.
this is Natalie Allen. I just want to make a comment that I really love when people respond to everyone, because I don't know, maybe not everyone's, but I love to see the responses. And even though it wasn't helping me personally, I love that we all get to learn that resource. So thank you for sharing with everyone, whoever did. It was great.
Yeah, Natalie, I totally agree. It warms my heart. You know, I get a lot of email, but when I see those emails, that just makes me so happy. I think that's kind of the true point of all of this. So I love it. And I just think it's wonderful when you guys feel like you can go ahead and email directly to that list. That's the whole point. So fantastic. All right, so also a new resource came to my attention earlier in the week. So there's a new preschool that's going to be opening next month in Lehigh that is specific around ABA therapy and some other kinds of offerings for kids on the spectrum, along with other, early intervention kinds of services. So it's called Baby in House, and apparently you can actually contact them now for pre-enrollment. So I think that website is correct, but we will also be getting this information into the Medical Home Portal's services directory for Utah. So you can always search for it there, basically, I'm sure later today, if you're interested in learning more about that. All right, so I'm not sure if Jill Connor has joined us, but Dora, perhaps you want to mention this?
Sure. Yes, so there is an educational opportunity at 12 o'clock today. It's safe transportation for all children. The presenter is Scott Jerome. So he started the special needs car seat clinic at Shriners Hospital, like I said, in 2016. He will cover all safety. He's also an instructor for the state of Utah for car seat safety. And what else? I think that's it. So it's at noon. I can put on the chat the link. You do have to register. It's through Project Echo. And if anybody does, and something that we have found in our clinic, in the special needs clinic, is that 90% of the special needs car seats are installed incorrectly. So it's definitely a fantastic source of information on there for all car seats and that as well. And so I will put that in there. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be here as well.
Thanks, Dora.
I just want to put a plug in for Scott. He worked with us in children with special health care needs for a lot of years. He is an excellent clinician and just a sweet, caring, entertaining guy. So he's amusing, and I'm sure his presentation will be interesting. So if you have an opportunity, I highly recommend it.
And Dora, a question in the chat is this webinar open to parents?
We asked Project Echo, and as long as they register, they can go ahead and get in there for sure.
Great, great. And so I hope people saw the email that we sent out or forwarded out that had the link as well for registration. So if for some reason you're unable to look at the chat, maybe look at your email from the last couple of days. So great, that's wonderful.
If you ever had any questions, I can give you Scott Jerome's direct line, or you can contact me and I can connect you with him as well.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you, Dora.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mindy.
All right, and I think I'll toss the baton over to Athena. Athena, do you want to have the, she's look at that, fabulous. Okay, Athena's gonna show us a couple of new things on the portal.
Great, so we have a couple new features on the portal we just wanted to highlight in this meeting, and one is within the Utah Services Directory. If you search a term now in the Services Directory, let's say I just put in early intervention as my search term, we now have a map feature, which is super exciting. It is going to show all the nationwide services as well, but you can zoom into Utah, which is going to help those families maybe locate the closest resource to them, even if it's not within the city name that, like previously, if they had searched by city name, maybe it wasn't always the closest resource. So this might help them locate that. And within this, we also have, if you click on some of these map markers, there are options to give feedback. And again, we always encourage, especially this group, to give any feedback if you see that information is incorrect about one of these agencies. You can give information about the name of the agency if the marker is incorrect on the map, or if this provider no longer exists. We always welcome that feedback. So the map feature is available within search terms, and it is also available within search categories. So if somebody was also just scrolling the categories, for example, and was looking for school districts, picked that as their category, they'd see all the school districts listed in map view as well. And the second feature we wanted to highlight is for those who have an account within the Medical Home Portal, which I hope you all do. If you don't, go register today. This is to do with the list features within the Medical Home Portal, and we have some new bulk actions. So I just went and created a few generic lists here. I've called them my list 10, 9, and 8. So now you can do bulk actions with these lists, such as sharing, deleting, unsharing, getting URLs. So let's say I wanted to grab the URLs from all 3 of these lists. I could grab them in one swoop. I could delete all 3 of them. But my favorite feature is the copying, and I'm going to show you that with this COVID, these ones that are labeled COVID. So you can now copy all lists, or you can copy more than one list at a time, but you can copy in 2 different ways. You can either copy them into separate lists or merging them into a single list. So here, I'm going to show you what the merge one looks like. So copy 3 lists to a single list. If I click on that, it's now going to merge all 3 of these lists and allow me to rename it. And I'm going to name it something like all COVID resources. So again, just some really nice features for those of you that especially use the list quite frequently and maybe need to reconfigure some of those you have or combine some. So now I've got that all resources list up here, and it's combined everything that was in these 3 together. So if you have any questions on those, feel free to email us or put something in the chat, and we'll respond to that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Athena. All right, I'll see if I can take back the screen. There we go. So yeah, we're excited about these new features, and we hope you'll try them out and give us feedback. We always want to keep improving, and the only way we can know how to do that is when you let us know what you need. So. All right, so we have some updates on clinical content and families content. I wanted to let you know that we have a couple of new pages around developmental coordination disorder, and also, let's see, I've got that here. And also toe walking. So some new pages there. Might be helpful to you. And then we've updated our page on feeding tubes and gastrostomies, and we've done an update to our traumatic brain injury diagnosis module. And on the family side, we've got several pages that are updated and a few more that are in the works. So we encourage you to always check out that, that content and share that with the families that you serve. All right, so let's talk about what's going on with you guys. Again, a shout out to you know, folks like Jade and Cassie who are thinking about utilizing or sharing things with this group. So This is also your time to do that in this meeting. And if anybody has something that they'd like to bring up around a case, it could be an update to a past case. It could be something that you're kind of stuck on, anything that you're just having trouble with. We also love, any ideas. Sometimes we hear about quality improvement stuff that's going on that's really cool. Any new resources that you're aware of, this is your time.
I just have a quick thing. This is Jade. I have heard a few people from a few different areas saying that in general, DME they're going through a little bit of a short supply. Things like gloves and the suction catheters, specifically like oral suction catheters, are on back order through several DME companies, not just one or two. So your families may come to you with concerns, trying to get those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you for that heads up, Jade.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else?
Well, let me just put in a plug for transition care that's going on right now, care coordination. I think a lot of you were probably copied on an email that I wrote regarding care coordination for youth of transition age. We know a lot of offices have limited capacity to be able to delve into some of that transition piece. And we want to just make you aware that we are available to help through our 4 local health departments that work with integrated services, and Walt and Tony, who are 2 in-house care coordinators as well. So if you need help or advice on working with your kids 12 to 21, but particularly 12 to 18, we would be delighted to hop in and help families make sense of what that process is and some things that they need to be considering over the next few years in the trajectory of their adolescent and youth.
Awesome, that's great. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you bringing that up. All right, anybody else? I'm curious to know how things are going with your clinics with, COVID and our recent surges. Everybody hanging in there, cold weather, how are things being handled?
Indeed, for us at Southwest, we thought that we could stop doing the curbside because we were doing a lot of the curbside visits, just because of what you said, the weather, and it was really difficult to try to fit the coats and the PPE on top of them and keep our staff warm and safe because of ice. However, I think we decided to go back into the office and actually leave, a room just dedicated for like someone that could possibly be positive for COVID. But that's been a challenge because we had a mom call in and she was definitely positive, and but the baby had to be seen. And so and we thought, well, if the mom's positive, the chances are that the dad is going to be positive sometime soon. So that was a challenge because we did need to get the baby's weight. It was a newborn. And so that's been really challenging for us. So we ended up having to go back out to curbside because we just didn't want to, we wanted to keep our staff safe. And even though we thought, okay, even if everybody put PPE on and kept it separate, we thought, well, they could interact with patients in the hallway, coming up our hallways, and other people around them, because we're on the second floor. And so we decided to go back on curbside, but that's kind of been a challenge of how we're going to do this moving forward so that we can keep our staff safe and yet still see the kiddos that we really need to see when a mom is positive and the dad possibly. And then they said, well, can I have my 17-year-old bring the child in? And it's like, oh my goodness, it just gets complicated and complicated. It's like, no. So it's been a challenge, but we ended up having to do a curbside and just bundle up, you know, especially these days that it's been really cold. We didn't know. I don't know if anybody else has done anything else or has any ideas, but we just had to go back. We had to go back to curbside and just bundle up and put the PPEs and then we're having to bring the child up sometimes anyway. But it's been a challenge. It's been a real challenge trying to figure out what's the best thing to do.
Yeah, I was
Can I ask you a quick question? What can you actually do curbside? A couple months ago, I knew I had strep throat, but they wanted to, you know, verify that I didn't have COVID, and they took care of all of it, you know, right out at the curb. A whole bunch of it. I did a little finger poke, and they did some other stuff. But what exactly? I mean, how much can you actually do out at the curb?
Well, we can't do weights. We have been doing cultures. We have been doing streps and flus out there, and even the COVID testing. But anything where UTIs, anything with urine, we still need to have that child come into the office, or anything that we need any kind of lab. That's kind of been a challenge. And so the only thing that we're thinking is they're coming in from our back office, so it's a little bit less exposure to other people. But it's a challenge. We still have not figured out the perfect thing to do.
All right, thank you for that update. That's so interesting. Anybody else? All right, well, we hope you're all staying safe and well. You know, there's kind of, you know, some new hope, some great news happening. The Salt Lake Trib had great pictures today of the first people getting immunized at LES Hospital and the University of Utah, and that's really exciting. So I'm gonna get through this. All right, well, I think I see that our presenter has joined us, so I'm really excited about that. Jeanne, are you with us?
Hi, I'm here. Can you see and hear me?
I think we can.
Great.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and give you the time, and if you'd like, we can make you the presenter, whatever you need.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful if I could. And I'm doing it through the web, so I hope all the functions are there. It seems like it's pretty smooth so far.
Let me see if I can find you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me today. I am Jeanne Woodlock. I'm a social worker, and I work with the Resiliency Center, which is a part of UView Health. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But just for your benefit for this group, I worked in primary care before I worked in this position with Heidi Bates at Redwood Health Center. So I'm aware some of you are employees and some of you are not. So I just wanted to give you that reference that I have some familiarity with the challenges of your position and the hard work that you do. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm grateful to spend some time with you today. So I wanted to jump right in and start with actually a recording of what's called the stop practice. So this is something that you can turn off your cameras for if you'd like to, and kind of just get comfortable. It's about 4 minutes long. This is something that can be done quickly. It could be done for 10 seconds if you'd like to. And so I'll just, let me see if I can share yet. It doesn't say that I can. Let's see, control. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So what I'm going to play is from a website. Let's see if I can everybody see stop practice, or what is stop? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
And you're seeing hopefully the right screen?
Yes.
So yeah.
Okay. So this is something you can access. It's on the Accelerate website, which is both an internal and external source of like articles and lots of really cool things, a few really neat tools, and lots of great information. And this is on the wellness part of Accelerate. So there's like a whole cluster of wellness, like audio clips and different meditations. So it's sort of, if you go into the explore section, then you could find wellness, and then there's things like a body scan or this stop practice. So this is something that we could go through together and just experience for a brief moment, and then we can go ahead and kind of talk and prepare for what we want to talk about next. So I'm going to go ahead and play her
Welcome
doing
to the
it.
stop practice. This is an informal mindfulness practice that allows us to literally take a breath and check in to see how we're doing. It can assist us in shifting from states of distraction and automatic pilot to being present and intentional. Pausing throughout the day can provide the mind and nervous system with needed breaks, bring awareness to our habit of distraction, and slowly build a new habit of attention and awareness. STOP is an acronym. S stands for stop. T is take a breath. O, observe thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. And P is proceed. Please find a comfortable place to stand or sit for a few minutes. And now we'll do it together. So stop. And notice what it feels like to stop moving, to stop doing. If you're in a safe environment, you may want to close your eyes. Take a breath or two or three and feel what it's like to be alive and breathing. How does it feel to inhale and exhale? Noticing the quality of your breath. Is it slow and rhythmic or shallow? And now observing thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations with as much openness and curiosity as possible. There's no need to judge, analyze, or fix what you find in this moment. So what is bubbling to the surface for you? Is there tension in your shoulders? Are you hungry or thirsty? Where are the areas of your body that feel good or at ease. Are there any emotions present? Impatience, irritation, joy, calm? Where do you feel these feelings and how are they making themselves known to you? And are there thoughts floating in the mind? Are you caught in a story about something that happened earlier today? Or perhaps planning for what's next? Whatever is present for you right now, simply acknowledging it, nodding to it, as if you're expressing, I see you. And it's okay. And now proceed, stepping into the next moment with greater awareness and intention. Perhaps asking yourself, what is most important right now? What deserves my attention right now? And then using that as a guide and proceeding with awareness and intention into the next moment.
Okay. Feel free to take a second here and wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes or shake out any of the stress you found, or just take a second to come back into this virtual meeting we're having. And I'd invite you to have your cameras on if you can. It'd be nice to see faces, but I understand sometimes you're in a hectic environment. As we kind of join back in, it'd be nice to hear how that went for some of you. And if you've done something like that before.
I was just going to say, pre-COVID, I used to go to a Restore Yoga one Thursday evening a week. And it was a good one for me because, like a typical guy, I'm not very limber. And so it was really nice to kind of try to contort into some of those positions, but for lengthy periods of time. It was a little bit dusky. It was very calm. There was nice music going. Again, not very limber, and sometimes I felt like a fool, but it was very relaxing. So I liked kind of being able to have that mindfulness time purposefully set aside.
Yeah, it's interesting how you just kind of created that moment for yourself, even just by participating in this little audio. Thank you for sharing. How else? What do others think about it?
I really liked that you allowed us to do that. I don't know that we have those times sort of scheduled in our days, and we often just go. And so to have someone else kind of give us permission to do that for a minute it's kind of huge, actually.
A lot of people say being told to stop it was like the biggest part for them sometimes. It's like actually being told I have to stop. So yeah, it sometimes, I like the audio guide sometimes because it can have that effect when we're kind of trying to self-guide.
I
How
think
about, oh, go ahead.
just to back Mindy up, I also think it's a good reminder of checking in with ourselves. What's more important than that? And it's something we don't do. And I think all of our functions that we do daily would benefit from checking in with ourselves every once in a while.
Yeah, I'd love to pick on you a little bit and ask if you'd say more about that, or others, right? Like, I like to kind of think, what would that do for me if I stopped and checked in more often?
For me, it slows down my thoughts. I'm a mind racer. I'm a type A. Mindy knows that. And so it just slows me down. And I mean, I'm a fast talker, things like that. It just, taking that breath just allows that release to check back in with your self-timing.
Yeah, it's one of those paradox things, right? Where it's like we have so much to do. So one would think a fast mind would help. And what we find is maybe not, right? What, that chatter, that noise chatter in the mind, like, how does that slow us down sometimes?
It's a distraction.
We feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to say too, I have an Apple Watch, and it used to drive me nuts when I'd get those little reminders to say stand or breathe. But honestly, with COVID, it's nice to get that, as I find sometimes I'm sitting at this computer for 4 or 5 hours, I don't get up. And so when that annoying little haptic happens on my wrist, I'm like, oh, maybe I should just sit and breathe for a minute or get up and move around.
Yeah, I don't know, it brings out the inner rebel in us sometimes to be told to stand up or breathe. For me, I'm like, you don't tell me what to do, watch. I tell you what to do. So it's good to override that sometimes, right? Speaking of, my dog is like, let me out of this room. So I'm just going to do that real quick. Once I turn the space heater off, they don't want any part of the office, but well, with this discussion, any other gains from that short practice that feel important to talk about? So as we kind of move into our topic a little bit more, I'm curious if we could, now that you've sort of checked in, I'm curious if you were to get something out of this meeting, what are you hoping to get? So if you just want to take a brief moment and kind of reflect on that, knowing I've already prepared something, obviously, but if you want to drop that in the chat, it's just interesting to kind of hear what would you feel like you'd like to walk away with today? So I'll give you just a brief second to think about that. And then feel free to either say it out loud or drop it in the chat.
I'll talk. So for me, Jeanne, I think, I try on a fairly regular basis to do this kind of thing, but I am so human and I get off the track. Something comes up and then I don't meditate, or I don't exercise, or I don't get good sleep, or whatever. So I just love when there's an opportunity for someone to help, in a concerted way with a chunk of time, where my whole attention is there to help me get back on track, remind me about all this stuff. Because as you mentioned before, that story, I'm the best storyteller. I will let that chatter in my head go on and on and on, right? And I need a break from that. I need someone, kind of an authority maybe, in this case you, to help me remember that's not healthy, and let's get back and do the calm things, take that breath, just be sometimes. So.
Thanks, Mindy. Anyone else want to comment on kind of what you hope to get out of today, if anything, with very little introduction about who I am and what I do? Okay. Well, I'll talk just a little bit more about the Resiliency Center. The Resiliency Center is a department within the University of Utah Health, and we have sort of three parts, and the biggest thing I offer is usually some of the support. So our focus is on staff and faculty well-being, and we do that through both support options. So that's similar to this moment where I can offer a presentation with information or experiences that kind of affect well-being, and especially that personal well-being. We also collaborate on the strategy for the University of Utah Health as a whole. So what's the strategy that we're wanting to help implement within the organization? So we kind of have both that micro and macro focus. And so that's just a little bit about why I am doing what I'm doing today, and what I can offer today. And so I do have slides. I find that it's sometimes different to present with slides over something like this. So I'll present those in just a second, and we'll kind of go back and forth from the slides and into more experiential and discussion. So at any point, feel free to ask questions or feel free to comment. This is something that it's nice to hear kind of like how things are being interpreted or how you're feeling about the material or what questions you have. And at the same time, if today for you self-care is just listening, then I'd encourage you to do that as well. Well, with this topic, with just even briefly hearing some of the things that were challenges, I heard something that I feel a lot during this time, and I also see a lot, which is this sort of feeling of like I keep trying to solve something and it keeps not having a solution sometimes. And we can get, like you'd mentioned, kind of in our heads about that. We can get, well, we just got to work harder or think longer or think faster on this topic, and we'll find that solution. And I believe that there are those solutions somewhere, and sometimes there's also not. And either way, it's sometimes not going to come with us kind of burning ourselves out over it. So why I'm talking about self-compassion today is because that is actually something that can help us when we run into those feelings of not being able to solve something or not being able to see something through all the way to the end, and we can start being really hard on ourselves. And something that is common in healthcare is that we have oodles of compassion for others, and we will do so much for others. And when it comes time to turn that inward, we're not exactly sure how. And luckily, the skill is already there. It's just a little bit of a redirection. So hopefully at the end of today's time together, you feel a little bit more able to redirect that incredible compassion that you have towards yourself a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and start sharing my slides. And I'm going to start with kind of in the middle, since I already introduced. Oh, no, it didn't start in the middle. Just a second here. Okay, so is everybody seeing a shark? Yep, all right, thanks, Mindy. Well, so I just wanted to talk briefly about some of those stress responses that we have in the body. So as you could see in this picture, in the presence of danger, like when the shark is here real time, right? There's the stress response that our body goes through. We call that fight or flight. And that fight or flight is really helpful in a situation like this little fish is in, when there is a physical threat to our well-being. So that could be, you know, any number of moments when there's this present threat. The funny thing is that our body gives the same response even if the threat isn't present. So you can see in this side with anxiety, the little fish is saying, what if, what if this shark comes out today? And no matter which situation we're in, whether we're in the what if piece in our head or if the shark is there, our body gives the same response. And you can understand how it's super helpful when I have to swim really fast away, when I have to run away from something or get to safety somehow. And it's not super helpful when I can't run away because it's in my head, right? Like I can't get away from this what if thought because it's a thought that is in my head. So the threats that are in our head, those internal threats, are real. And so usually the anxiety is triggered by, or the stress response from anxiety is triggered by a threat that is internal or vague. So vague is sort of like this virus, right? It's a real threat. We just don't know when and where it is, and we don't know what it will do for us. So the anxiety is very legitimate, right? Like the stress response, not super helpful, but it makes sense that it's there. So both of these are legitimate, and we work with them in a similar way. And when it comes to anxiety, we sort of have to help the body along because it's not as good at doing its whole process. This is a lot of text on this slide, but just to sort of illustrate, when we're in this green zone, we can consider that kind of this homeostasis, if you will. This is where we can sort of experience the full range of life. We can be happy or angry, we can be tired or energized, and we sort of have this range that we go through. And then we have these extreme states that are also really necessary and helpful. And when this window of tolerance is sort of overwhelmed by something, then these extreme states help us regulate. So we can kick into that hyperarousal, and that maybe feels, again, like anxiety, and that fight or flight, and kind of gets us through a tough moment. And what tends to happen is we start to maybe develop patterns of kind of using that, and that's when it can get off balance. We also have this other extreme state, this freeze state, right? So we know fight, flight, and that's kind of activation, and then that freeze is shut down. So these can all happen pretty quickly, right? Like if I hear a loud noise and I'm not sure where it comes from, my body goes to that hyperarousal state, and as soon as it's, maybe I even freeze. I'm definitely someone who tends to freeze. So I'll hear that, I'll freeze, and then I know what it is, and I come right back to homeostasis. So it can happen really fast. The cycle is really interesting like that. And that's like a really healthy version of the cycle. So what tends to happen, especially in healthcare, and you might already have figured this out, a lot of people tend to live in this hyperarousal state. And sometimes they're in flow, which means they're still in homeostasis, even if it's a high stress moment, because they've trained for it. But sometimes we have to kind of use that activation to get through things, right? So it's sort of that pushing through. We kind of get energized from that hyperarousal, and we might push through something. And then what tends to happen is maybe we've pushed through even 5 days of something, and then we kind of shut down, right? We might get that freeze activation. That starts to look like, I don't want to get out of bed. I can't get motivated to do some of the things I want to do. Again, these extreme states exist for regulation, so they're important. They help us out. So if we find ourselves in a state of hyperarousal, it doesn't mean like we're doing something wrong. It just kind of means, whoa, that's how drained I am. So I just wanted to share this to recognize how these cycles tend to play out, especially if we're kind of chronically in them or chronically in a state of stress like we've been through all of 2020. And then I also just want to ask a question for you to reflect on, and then invite any comments kind of around, now that you see this zone, what are things that you already do that help bring you back into this green zone? So maybe that help bring you from this hyperarousal back to this calm, or that maybe help you find some of that connection to good emotion, or when you're feeling numbed out. So go ahead and take a second to think about this. What do I already do that helps? And then I'd love to hear just a couple of comments. What helps me get back to that homeostasis?
Jeanne, can I pipe in here? I get the 3 a.m. I don't know what to call it, epiphany, or insecurities, overwhelm, whatever you want to call it. Just everything seems insurmountable at that time of the morning, witching hour, if you will. And I do a couple things. I would lie there and perseverate and worry about it, but don't go do anything about my worries. Or if I actually get up, grab a drink of water, maybe visit the bathroom, have a little change of scenery, I can go back to bed and kind of shut that off. So kind of getting away from where I am for just a minute, even if it's just a walk across the room, frequently helps. But I'm not smart enough to do that all the time. So sometimes I still lie there and perseverate when I know getting up actually works.
Yeah, we get tricked by our own minds, right? Because perseverating feels like I'm putting effort into this, right? Like I'm trying. But what's kind of sneaky is that we're already in that limbic system, which means we're not in our best logical state. So it's this sort of backwards trick of like, if I keep thinking, even though I'm really stressed about it, which means I've got all these hormones going on that aren't super helpful to stop and solve a problem and think logically. It's one of those ways we trick ourselves. I'm just going to check out this chat. Yeah, something physical, good. So one thing that is really important when thinking about this stress cycle is, again, whether it's physical or internal, we still react physically. So the best way to work with the physical activation is through the body. And that's where grounding techniques and kind of meditation techniques really draw us inward to the physical and try to get us out of the cerebral. So meditation will often have you focus on your breath, and that's a sensory thing. And our senses are sort of there to help us regulate physically. In a sense, if I can hear that there's not a lion, or if I can see that there's not a lion, I don't have to think about there not being a lion. My body takes that information and does it for me, and it will start that calming down. So that's why so many meditation things, and that's why exercise feels so good. One of the reasons is that it's getting the body sort of to be truthful by saying, like, we're safe physically. We don't need this whole fight or flight. Doesn't mean there's not a problem, but we're not physically in danger. Any other comments?
I think one of the things that has helped me during COVID to tackle my perseveration is picking up the habit of journaling. So if I find that my mind has all of these thoughts going through them, I need to get those thoughts down on paper. So I just grab a notebook and I'll just start scribbling every thought that I have, just jotting it down. And sometimes it just needs a place to go, and then close it and then address it later. But journaling has really helped. And then like bringing my awareness into the present, like where are my feet? What am I sitting on? What am I seeing? What am I tasting? What am I smelling? And so just practicing that mindfulness, like in the moment, to bring myself back to the present has really helped as well.
Yeah, those are great comments. And if we think about journaling, that's physical, right? We're taking something that's ephemeral and sort of vague and without shape and form, and we're putting it into words and we're writing it down. So there's a physical aspect to journaling, right? That I can see, I can hear the sound of the pen, I'm moving, so I'm touching things. That's 3 senses involved, right? Which is kind of super cool. So today we will kind of talk about the range of these things. Like I like to think of, like a vacation is over here, exercising somewhere in the middle, one deep breath is over here, and we can utilize that whole range. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides again. So this little picture is just demonstrating how one way that we can kind of get into the rabbit hole that we like to metaphorically use, and sometimes that can come, the first threat, if you like, that internal threat might be some kind of disappointment in ourselves. Maybe it's even, I can't figure this out, or maybe it's, I did something wrong, or I lost my patience, or something like that. Any moment that can bring up disappointment. And then that can lead to more thoughts and even this escape, right? So that fight and flight can come on through the sense of, I don't want to feel this, right? And maybe I'm going to fidget, or maybe I'm going to go do something, or maybe I'm going to turn to food, and because there's this feeling here that I don't like and I want to get rid of it. So one route is to sort of distract from it. Another route can be to go further into like, what's wrong with me, right? And that can kind of lead to more thoughts. So now we're kind of getting down this spiral, which then ultimately leads, as we know, to more stress and pointedly more physical reaction, which means more cost of energy from our bodies. So that's hard. And if we kind of think about, again, we have the stress response, fight, flight, and freeze. Those are all physical things that we can do to get to safety. And when we can't do those things, or when it's an internal threat that we sort of keep spiraling with, that's when it can turn inward in some specific ways. Like that fight is maybe self-criticism or even inner conflict. Sometimes my fight is like, I'll have like a negative thought, and then I'll have this positive voice that's like, no, you're the best and you can do things. And then I'll have that negative voice get even louder. And so even though this positive voice is trying to help, it sort of becomes this conflict, which feels like fight. That flight can lead to cutting off from support. Maybe it's like putting ourselves in isolation, whether that's just sort of emotionally. So maybe we aren't vulnerable. Maybe we can't connect with people because we're just kind of holding it all in. Or maybe that's even physically isolating ourselves, right? And that freeze can feel like that rumination where we just kind of keep looping. So today we're going to talk about how self-compassion, if we kind of take these moments and use self-compassion, which there's lots of tools. We've talked about some. But today we're talking about self-compassion as a tool to work with this stress response. So we'll talk about these elements, and then we'll practice in just a second. So self-compassion, what is it even, right? So maybe it's not kicking yourself when you're down. So kind of this idea of why, if I saw someone else hurting, my reaction would not be to further criticize them most of the time. So maybe it's not kicking yourself when you're down through criticism, which we just sort of saw how that prolongs these stress reactions, which makes more suffering. So self-compassion ultimately is, how would I treat someone else who is feeling this way, someone else that I cared about, and can I do that for myself? There are 3 elements of self-compassion according to modern research, but we also know that this is like an eternal concept, right? Like this is something that most wisdom traditions have thought about. So this goes deeper than sort of modern psychology, but Dr. Neff, a psychologist who has studied this, has broken it down to kind of these 3 elements. So there's an element of self-kindness. So kindness is actually an action, and compassion is a feeling. So compassion or all feelings come with an urge to act. That's why feelings have this survival element to them. When we feel angry, we feel urge to attack. When we feel scared, we feel urge to flee. And when we feel compassion, we have an urge to comfort. So kindness is an action that helps comfort. So another element is kind of a shared sense of humanity. So kind of trying to find, instead of that isolation, finding that connection through the suffering. And then mindfulness is sort of being aware of what's here, and among other things, but in this context, just being aware of the feelings that are here. So a couple of myths. We sometimes, especially in healthcare, because a lot of high achievers are in healthcare, we tend to think of self-compassion as this like excuse, right? Like to not hold ourselves to the highest standards that we usually do. And that can kind of translate into these common myths that we find, which is maybe self-compassion is this form of self-pity. It maybe is a weakness. A lot of people, this third one, a lot of people worry about this. Like, it'll make me complacent. Like, if I'm not constantly hard on myself, I'll just become this really lazy person. And that it's maybe self-centered or narcissistic. So those are a few myths which are very untrue. And through the research, we've seen that it actually leads to less stress, obviously. So less of this fight or flight kicking in, which means I have more energy to devote to the things I care about in life. And therefore, it also kind of lowers some of those chronic symptoms like anxiety and depression. And it can add to both the physical health and the emotional health. We also know from many of these studies that self-compassion is a protective factor in trauma. So this whole year has had lots of traumatic moments and even secondary trauma, which I think is sort of a misnomer, because if you are witnessing really hard stories with these families, that's your own little t trauma, right? Like, it maybe didn't happen to you, but you were a part of the story in some way and witnessing it. So there's lots of notes of trauma this year, and whether that's big T trauma or little t trauma. And so self-compassion is actually a protective component within protecting against PTSD symptoms. So it increases our resilience. It's linked to better behaviors, healthier behaviors. We're more likely to exercise and you cope through healthy substances like food and other important nutrients, and it's more connecting. So we're going to go ahead and, oops, I didn't mean to end. I meant to stop sharing. I don't know what's happening. Am I sharing the screen anymore?
No.
Okay, good. That's what I meant to do. Some good comments in the chat here. Thought labeling is definitely a great way to get some of that awareness and mindfulness. And also to kind of stop it in the tracks. Like, if we could say, this hard thought is here, this is a thought, that's another way to sort of tell the body, like, it's not a lion, it's a thought. So any questions about what we went over? We're about to head into experiencing a self-compassion break, but any questions so far or any comments? Okay. What do we like it so far? Or are we suspicious of self-compassion? We're liking it so far.
Can I just make a quick comment? So in the discussion where you're talking about how stress like impacts like your health and things like that, one of the things that I remind myself to keep my stress level a little bit lower at times, it's just a phrase, but it's like, remember your telomeres. So stress can cut off some of the impacts the telomeres, and then the telomeres impacts your life expectancy. And so by reminding myself, okay, bring it down so that like health-wise, it's not affecting me in other areas of my health, so that I don't cut my life so short. That's
I love
helpful.
that. Think of the telomeres. I love that. Well, we're going to go ahead and experience this now. And how we experience it probably won't be that hard to call up some suffering. But I'll go ahead and walk you through this. So what I'd like you to do is even starting with just a little body scan today and just noticing physically what suffering is here. We'll practice with the physical first, and then we can kind of talk about how does this extend to situations and thoughts. So go ahead and just scan head to toe and notice what physical suffering is here today. And what we've just done is acknowledged that suffering is here, that we've been impacted by something. And that's the first step. And whatever it is you found, maybe tense shoulders, maybe low back pain, maybe nausea in the stomach, maybe a headache, maybe jaw tension, whatever it is you found, we're just going to say, this hurts. This is heavy that this is here. And the second step, to connect to that shared humanity, maybe we can say something like, other people feel this. So no matter what caused it, maybe we know that other people sometimes hold tension in their shoulders. Other people have jaw pain or tension. Other people feel nauseous sometimes. And then what we're going to do is take a moment to think about, if I were to offer comfort, if I were to offer kindness to these shoulders, or to this throat, or to this jaw, or to this stomach, in this moment, what would that look like? And go ahead and do that thing. So we're thinking of the thing and we're also doing it. So maybe kindness in this moment looks like a deep breath. Maybe kindness looks like a soft touch or a warm touch. Sometimes it looks like a self-massage, which we often underestimate how good they feel. So maybe that's what you need right now, is a little bit of a neck massage. Maybe you do need that drink of water. Or maybe you need a piece of chocolate. Whatever you can do right now. This is your moment to do that. Now, if you'd like to continue, we can go back to the 3 steps again, and this time thinking of something that's been on your mind. Maybe it's a situation with work. Maybe it's a general mood feeling. Maybe it's something at home. Just calling to mind something that's been kind of eating at you in some way. And we're going to first recognize it as a little bit of suffering. And so we can do that again physically through the body scan. So maybe it's, let me just acknowledge how thinking of this affects my body. Or maybe we want to take it a step further and just say, it's hard to have this on my mind. If my mind has been ruminating, maybe we just want to say, it's hard to ruminate. That's painful. Maybe we want to say, this is heavy that this is here right now. And then again, to that second step, Can I think of someone else who might feel this way sometimes? Or even just that reminder that suffering is part of being human, that I'm not alone in suffering. I'm not alone in ruminating. Other people get caught up in shame. Other people have problems they can't solve. And then again, inviting you to take that third step of what is a moment of kindness that I can offer myself right now. Those options can be physical, like a deep breath. Maybe it's stretching, readjusting, giving a little more comfort to the body. Or maybe there's words that you can offer, like, may I learn to accept myself as I am. Maybe it's okay that I can't solve it. Maybe I'm expecting a lot of myself. And maybe I'm doing the best I can. So taking these last 10 seconds or so to offer yourself this kindness, whatever that is for you in this moment. And whenever you're through that, again, inviting just a brief discussion as we're starting to wrap up. And I'll show a couple more slides that you can take as a screenshot. I will have a handout for some of this information, but it's not ready yet. So we'll get that to Mindy when that's finished. But for now, kind of coming back to, how did that feel to talk to yourself in that way? What was different about that, of taking that breath or whatever it was? How did that go?
I think it was a little surprising for me that Jeanne, you and I talked briefly before, the meeting a couple days ago about it's very vulnerable, right? And that's a little scary. It was nice to be able to turn the camera off, right? Because a lot of feelings right here with everybody. I just think that if we were able to be more vulnerable more often with each other and say stuff like, oh, my heart is really pounding right now, or my shoulders are up around my ears because I am stressed. We don't say those things. We're always trying to be perfect. And if we could share that with each other, I am so not perfect. And right now, I think it would come a lot more easily to say to yourself, I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah, and I'll just, I think vulnerability there's a lot of buzz about that word. And I think you're kind of pitching a clearer picture of it than modern, like pop psychology. I think the psychologists are right, but sometimes we kind of interpret it in sort of the popular interpretation is a little bit different. But vulnerability is not about what I reveal. I don't have to tell all the details of my life. It's kind of more, can I just be where I am? If I'm stressed and I'm scared, it's sort of that more self-acknowledgement and acceptance that that's where I'm at right now. So I like how you said it of I don't have to reveal all these things about me, but I can say I'm a little bit, I'm feeling the stress, right? Or I'm not feeling my best right now, or I'm feeling pretty critical of myself lately. Any other comments or thoughts? I see in the chat someone said, sometimes we're afraid to be seen as weak, which is so true and very old, right? That's a really old instinct that we have, is to not appear weak. In the animal kingdom, vulnerability is showing your vital organs, right? Kind of showing vulnerable parts of the body. So that makes sense, that we would feel like, you know, feeling this stuff makes me look weak. Any other thoughts? Did we like the exercise? If one person...
I was just going to comment, I think a lot of times we're so much kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. I mean, you know, with Mindy telling me what she thought, I don't see her as weak or, you know, I mean, I've worked with her for a long time and she does an amazing job. The fact that she says, you know, I'm feeling something or stress or whatever humanizes it, and I don't have any sort of a value judgment, but yet I'm not as kind to myself. I'm more critical of myself and don't allow myself to take those breaks or publicly feel what I'm, publicly acknowledge what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very true. We are much harder on ourselves than we are on others. Well, I think one thing I'll mention, you might have felt this, like there's something mind-blowing about that ability to say, hey, guess what? Ruminating? That doesn't feel good. Like we forget, like these processes we kind of find ourselves in, those processes alone are hard. And so I think the ability to kind of start practicing, oh, when this feeling of stress is here, that means I'm going through something kind of difficult. And if I can just start having compassion for that process of like, no wonder I'm tired. Well, that explains, right? Like it makes sense that I would feel this way because I'm got this rumination going on. Of course I'm going to be stressed. So I think that's just an extra piece I want to point out, that I think that takes some skill and it takes some practice to be able to say, oh, this is not easy. And that doesn't mean you have to quit trying or that, you know, it's not worth it. It just means like this process isn't very easy. Well, I'm using the time quite fully, even though I told Mindy I would probably not. So that means I've talked a lot, but I want to share my slides again, just because if anybody wants to take a picture, I think this is something that could be a handout that maybe your families might also like to have. So just, I've done this so many times. I sort of facilitate it in my own way, but this is from selfcompassion.org, which is where a lot of Dr. Neff's research is. So these next few slides are the break. And actually, you know, I think I put it together. Oh yeah, here it is. So this is kind of how I see it and how my colleagues and I have put this together. This is the bare bones of the tool that we will put together and I can send on later. So if you want to take a screenshot of this in the next slide, this is sort of the gist and the how-to of these different elements. And I'll go ahead and go to the next slide unless someone needs any more time. So some of these links, like the practice and the audio guides, are to our YouTube channel, where there's some videos where my colleague who did the stop practice recording is also doing some other guides. Some of those, oh, this is one of her. So if you went to YouTube and typed in Mindful Self-Compassion with Trin Mai, this is what would come up. Oops. Is it still sharing?
We're seeing the self-compassion break slide.
Oh. Weird. Let's see. Are you seeing a picture of Trin now?
Yes.
Okay. And did you see these ones?
We did not.
Oh, well, sorry. These are the ones I was talking about. So
Okay.
you're seeing now these two columns.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I was saying this is kind of the bare bones. That's weird. It
That's helpful.
didn't show where I was on. And then here's the second page that kind of just has a little bit more, some tips and just some information.
Well, that's great.
And then this is the YouTube video. So this is the title that you can search if you wanted to get connected to that playlist. And then there are some other, like take a mindfulness course with Trin. There are some offerings through that first one website. And then some of that playlist, like I brought up, the Accelerate playlist is on this website. And then the Pulse is more internal, but just a reminder for those with the U that there's some resources on our Pulse page. And then there are these others that kind of go into self-compassion and some apps that work with this topic. And then this is, I'm just going to scroll through. In case you need my information, here it is.
Wonderful. And
So
I'll make sure we get those links sent out as well. So
yeah, I can send those to you. So thanks for having me here. Any other questions or anything else I can speak to as we kind of close up with this topic?
I will just put a plug in for the mindfulness course that Trin does. So she does a couple, and I've taken one that was a 4-week long, and it was fantastic. And a lot of the people that were in there were coming back again because, like I mentioned, for myself, I think sometimes you just need a refresher. And so it's very economical, and I would encourage it's open to people, inside the U and out. So if you want to consider that, it was great.
I just wanted to say thank you for giving us the time and the space to do this, because like Mindy had mentioned before, I don't think we schedule enough time for ourselves to do these kind of practices. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. And even though I do have an offering right now that for the Resiliency Center or for U of U health employees, it's kind of targeted towards inpatient, but anyone is welcome. So those are happening. I'll also send a flyer with that information. There's a Zoom link, and those are happening twice a week. There's one on Mondays and Thursdays at 4:30 to 5 with some of these topics. And so we'll start that up again in January, but we do have one on Thursday, and then we'll stop for a few weeks. So I'll send that as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Lots of comments in the chat saying thank you so much, Jeanne. We really appreciate it.
Take care.
Well, thanks everybody. I hope that this was helpful as you go into what's often an even more stressful time with the holidays. I always joke that we need time off before the holidays, not during necessarily. And, I think one of the best things that'll happen when we're all vaccinated and we get through this pandemic is being able to give each other hugs again. I would like to give each and every one of you a hug. We'll do it virtually and let you know that you guys mean a lot to me. I really love the UCCCN, and I wish you all the best. Stay safe and healthy. And our next meeting will be on January 20th, and we look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everyone.
See you guys.
Thank you, Mindy.
Bye-bye.